But there's also a qualitative aspect where just reading information and making inferences can be very valuable. And I think this is a case where the professional bettors thought, the commissioner of a professional sports league is coming out here and basically asking for a competitive game, which would tend to, reasonably think they're going to play more defense. And I think that thought process kind of ran away with.
You are looking live at VSiN PrimeTime. Live from the Circus Sportsbook in downtown Las Vegas, here's Tim Murray and Jonathan Von Tobel.
Matt Metcalf, longtime odds maker here in town, still consultant with Circus Sports and now chief risk officer for Mojo, joins us here, and you can follow him on Twitter at MMPact on Twitter. A lot to get to, Matt, just from some kind of nuance from behind the counter. I know we were just hitting on it, but for a game like the All-Star game, where you see this massive move from 368.5 down to 353.5, take us behind the scenes of just setting that number initially and what leads to just a massive, drastic change like we saw yesterday in that total.
Yeah, as an odds maker, I think you're doing your homework a little, and I'm referencing a snafu that I had with the WNBA game a little, where I didn't correctly consider the situation. But anyway, yeah, you're kind of looking into the game and you're understanding the format, and then you're kind of reading everything you can read. And I think from my understanding, and again, I'm not in the NBA odds making space day to day, but from my understanding, there was a thought out there that Adam Silver had come out and said that he wanted to see a competitive game. And a lot of times in sports betting, there's obviously a quantitative approach that you can take, running models, sims, but there's also a qualitative aspect where just reading information and making inferences can be very valuable. And I think this is a case where the professional bettors thought, the commissioner of a professional sports league is coming out here and basically asking for a competitive game, which would tend to, reasonably think they're going to play more defense. And I think that thought process kind of ran away with. So.
There was also the LED floor, right? I think some people brought that up. And I'll say, I think in fairness, we just watched the in-season tournament where a lot of people didn't think it was going to be very good, and there was some competitive basketball there. So I think maybe those things together, I can understand moving that. But when you see a total drop like that, does it necessarily mean that you're getting bets 363.5, 362.5, 361.5? When you see a drastic move, are you getting bets at every number necessarily?
A lot of this is going to come down to the bookmaker. And so if you're at a book like Circus Sports that I would consider a market-making sports book, and this is a book that hangs its own numbers and has sharp players and reacts very aggressively to what they consider to be sharp action, you're going to see a different type of movement. So if we open this number, and again, I don't know our opener, but I know some books in town opened higher than the 363.5, 364 number that was out there. First off, you're going to consider the market. Okay, let's say I like the over and I open 365 and I see there's 363s out there. I could get some bets initially on the under that could be just arbitrage players, guys playing the difference. But then I'm really going to be on the lookout for people that I respect, advantage bettors who have information. So if I have a sharp bettor who bets me under 364 and the market's about 364, I'm going to think, okay, he thinks this number is off. He bets under. I'm not going to make a 1 or a 2 point move, first off, because his total's in the 300s. So it's different than taking a bet on like over 205 where I go 206.5. My first move, due to the lack of information on this game, is probably going to be like a 3 point move minimum just to get in the ballpark. So I've taken on 364. I'm at 361. And now I'm just kind of looking for some resistance. Like this guy likes the under. Honestly, he could have made the number 330. I have no clue at this point. So I really want to try to feel out this number. So I go 20 minutes and I haven't seen a bet at 361, other than our bets betting back towards the over. I'm going to keep pushing that number to understand what's the bottom of this where I can find some more resistance. That's how bookmakers are going to find, what the limit should be. So let's say I took, I went down to 360 on air, went down to 359 on air, 358 on air. Eventually I get a bet over 358 from somebody I also respect. And say, okay, I'm going to give him a little respect, go back to 360. Probably at that point bump the limit. And the point of that also is to incentivize other really smart professional bettors to give me their action and give me more information. So at that point, my goal is to drive these limits as high as I can as the bookmaker so I can make as much money off trading these positions. But it's really a feeling out process. In a game like this with, not a lot of information, you're going to be more aggressive.
Matt Metcalf, longtime odds maker here in town, still a consultant with Circus Sports, joining us here in studio. You had a tweet, and we pulled it up here, regarding, this was, I think, right around the Super Bowl, and you said, often I think bettors don't understand that every line move is not an immediate reaction to a bet just placed. A majority of my non-game day line moves are either exploratory or continuation moves. Continuation meaning following up on an earlier line move that lacked resistance. So what was this in regards to? Was this talking Super Bowl, generalities? What were you kind of your point here regarding line moves here in this?
This is that bettors think that every bookmaker is an idiot tweeting. Because they really think we're robots. They think we just sit there and we have no thoughts and we're just like, bet under 365, 364. I will say there are some bad bookmakers. There are some ones who could never make a living betting sports.
Yeah.
But I like to think that the room we've built here at Circa Sports and other rooms, whether it's the Westgate or the guys at WinBet, I mean, these are highly skilled bookmakers who a lot of them could make money betting sports. So we're thinking the same way in terms of trying to kind of logically go through and deduct like what the price is in these different markets. So my point was early in the week, when the limits are lower, when I'm taking $5,000 on the college football side with the anticipation of taking $50,000 on the weekend, I'm paying less for the information. So if nobody's betting me at, -4, I'm not learning anything. And the information's cheap right now. So I'm going to try to move the number around and get bets coming in so I can pay $5,000 rather than wait till the weekend, get a bet at -3 and have to feel my way around blindly at $50,000 a pop. So I think that, I was looking for a little more credit from the bettors in terms of the thought process that goes into my job, but also just kind of saying, we're here to perform a function of price discovery in an effort to get our limits high to make more money. The bigger the bets we take in a tight window, the more money we can make.
So that's pretty interesting. So you guys obviously, and they still do, have you guys set the market in college football. So is it a similar process on those Sundays? Or are you moving a little bit on air to see what's going to go on? Because those are obviously low limits. A lot of people are attacking you because you're the first on market.
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of my comments are going to come from because college football is the market I have the most experience with, being a market maker. I think people really underestimate, as I said in this tweet, the amount of air moves I'm making because, when we open the line, we get a lot of bets coming at once. But then the board gets kind of stagnant. Other places come up. I'm going to react and move in position to the other sports books that hang a number. If I like a side and then bet online or another local sports book opens a number higher and I think I want to be highest, I might go past them. If I haven't seen any action on that game in a little while, I might move it around. If I took a bet at a number, like I said earlier with the All-Star game, if I took a bet at -3, I went 4, and nobody touched it, I might say, okay, let's go 5 and see what happens. Harder to do when the limit's $100,000 or $50,000 the day of the game.
Matt, I want to kind of go back to the Super Bowl because I bet the 49ers. I lost the bet, such is life. And I got this a lot, even leading up to the game, I was like, I told people, yeah, I'm on the 49ers. Like, oh, okay. Good luck. I'm like, they're the favorite in this game. And JVT and I talked about it. And look, we lose bets all the time. It's part of sports betting. But I got asked this a lot. Like, do odds makers not know that Patrick Mahomes is over there? Do they not trust him? I'm like, and JVT made a really good point about the AFC Championship. It's like the market was set at 3 and the bettors moved it up. So how often do you feel like you take a stance as an odds maker? I'm like, I think this number is true, and I'm not going to set it at Kansas City -2 when that's not what my numbers say what they are.
Well, it's an interesting problem because you have your raw power rating as an odds maker and as a bookmaker, and you do have to factor in the thought of the market. In a game like Super Bowl where there's so much public money, the public's opinion does matter in that game. This was an interesting game where I just racked my brain trying to think about it because most anybody who ran a model or had a quant-based approach had a higher number on San Fran, right. I think, from just talking to people around.
Yeah.
But in this game, everyone asked that same question, like how do you weight the Mahomes factor? And I've never really seriously entertained that thought for any game except this one, because I've always just said, it's kind of baked into the number and it gets bet into there. But just listening to some really smart people talk about this and kind of compare it, I took this comparison from, I was listening to a Super Bowl podcast that had Barry Horse on it, and he was kind of talking and comparing, and I'm probably going to butcher this, so I apologize if I'm doing that, but he was comparing it kind of the Tiger Woods factor or kind of like the Miami Heat when they had, the 3, just in terms of turning it on when they needed it.
Right.
Tiger working on his game when he's at Torrey Pines because he wants to hit certain shots at Augusta. And, it made me kind of think about it in that way, and I never really had kind of thought about that. And again, NBA is kind of like that. So we think about NBA as everybody's saving for the playoffs. But I don't think I've ever really thought about it properly for NFL. And, I hate to even go down this road because it's hard to quantify. But I do think that there were some very smart people who had probably correctly thought about this. And, again, we come down in the end and watching the game, San Fran easily could have won that game, and it's one result. But I think it was definitely in the line. And I think, without that Mahomes factor, you would have been seeing the line probably dealt closer to 3 or 4. Like it would have been all year. So
the Mahomes factor of getting a punt to bounce off the ankle of a guy that's engaged in a block, right?
It's too good.
He's too incredible.
I mean, look, he's great, and the numbers are what they are. What is it, 11-1-1 ATS now, whatever it is. As an underdog. It's phenomenal. We got a lot to go. You cool to hang out another segment? All right. Matt Metcalf, veteran handicapper, or veteran odds maker, I should say, got to hang out with us here on VSiN PrimeTime. One of the things I do want to hit on, Matt, with you, and we got only a couple seconds here, is sports bettors now in college basketball just look at the Ken Pom line and they say, well, that's going to be the line. And sometimes it is. So I want to kind of dive into that a little bit there. And I know JVT's got a thought on payouts because we had a little bit of a viral clip going on over the weekend. So Matt Metcalf going to hang out with us for another segment. Circus Sports consultant still and the chief risk officer now for Mojo. Follow him on Twitter at MMPact on Twitter. That's JVT. I'm Tim Murray. More to come. It is VSiN Primetime here on a Monday evening on VSiN.